I never understood why people don't like nightmares. I always loved them, Joel admitted, with a lazy shrug. Even as a little kid, they were like these little mini horror movies, produced, written, and directed by my own brain just for me. And since my folks didn't let me watch scary movies, I had to take it where I could get it, you know? The old man said nothing. He didn't nod. He didn't shake his head either, or grunt out some basic begrudging acknowledgement. His hairless head held no eyebrows to raise, and beneath the dry, pale stretch of forehead where they should have been, his eyes sat sunken too deep within his skull for Joel to catch any glimmer of understanding or consideration. Uncomfortably, Joel reached down and scratched his bare knee through the tattered hole in his jeans, a nervous habit long held. I mean, after they split up, my dad and his girlfriend sometimes let me watch the occasional zombie flick or something, just to get me off their backs. But that was only every other weekend, you know? And I was just this little kid. I probably would have rather, I don't know, played catch with him, or whatever it is normal fathers do with their normal sons. Still, the old man said nothing, and Joel realized he was digressing. But anyway, yeah, nightmares. Man, I've always remembered them pretty vividly. The first bad dream I ever had, for instance. I can still see it if I close my eyes and try. It was a simple one, but it haunted me. My mom tells me I woke her up with my screams, but when she rushed into my room, she found me still asleep with a big smile on my face. I don't know why I was smiling. The dream was pretty brutal. I dreamed that I was riding down a river on a raft made of logs, held together with rope, all peaceful-like. But when I look down, I see that the water is full of leeches, like crawling with them. The river is more leech than water at this point, and they're huge, impossibly huge. 2-3 feet long, and that's bad enough, but then they start to climb up my paddle, so I throw it into the water, but now I can't steer. And that's bad enough too, but then the rope holding my raft together starts to unravel, and the logs begin to drift apart. That's not the one I'm here to sell you, of course, he added quickly. You said you wanted nightmares that were more recent, right? Fresh, the old man corrected him, in a dry whisper that dripped with obvious relish. His thin, bloodless lips stretched themselves outwards and upwards into a macabre grin, revealing perfect teeth the same color as the bone-white tie he wore beneath his formal black suit. And Joel began to wonder whether he'd made a mistake in coming here. When he found the ad online, it seemed straightforward enough, if a bit cryptic. Wanted, fresh nightmares, ran the header, and the body held very little in the way of elaboration or details beyond the address of this coffee shop. No contact number, no email address, and the promise of a very generous and specific payment in cash. A little sketchy, sure, Joel had thought, but money was money, and it wasn't like he had a whole lot of other options coming his way. Fresh, right, I getcha, Joel replied, with a nervous grin of his own. So how does this work? Do I just tell you the nightmare I had last night, and you pay me, and I'm on my way? Or did you want to record it, or something? The old man shook his head. A couple hours later, the sounds of the sea filled Joel's ear, courtesy of a dusty, beat-up boombox on the bookshelf a few feet away. With his eyes shut tight as per his instructions, he leaned back in the recliner, trying to optimize his comfort. The waves rolled in and out slowly, gently. Once or twice he heard a seagull. Before long he became aware of a soft strain of piano music accompanying the nature scene. though whenever it had started, he hadn't noticed. "Relax," whispered the old man from somewhere in the room. Joel couldn't tell where. The sound of his voice seemed to come from every direction at once. "Relax and focus. Focus all of your attention on the movement of the waves. From the moment they hit the sand and then roll backwards, back into the ocean, only to rise again, crest and fall. Back and forth, in and out. With each rise and each fall, allow yourself to sink deeper and deeper and deeper into relaxation. Now, I want you to find yourself back at the beginning of your nightmare." And then that's exactly where Joel was. The safe oblivion of the darkness behind his eyelids melted away into a familiar scene, though one he'd only seen once before. The sun suddenly seemed to shine brightly overhead. His hands, no longer safe and comfy on the armrests of the recliner, now chafed at the bindings holding them behind his back. The taste of dust persisted in his mouth, no matter how many times he tried to swallow, and he knew he was about to die. "Tell me where you are," came the old man's omnipresent rasp. Joel licked his lips with a tongue dry as sandpaper. "I'm standing at the gallows," he replied, without thinking, without deciding what to say. The words just came. "I'm at the edge of a small town. In the Old West, I think." The dream had come to him with a full set of fabricated memories, an instinctual backstory, which at the time seemed clear as glass, but which now he struggled to remember. They think I'm a very bad man." No sooner had he said that than the gentle ebb and flow of the ocean transformed into something angry, something less simple and more cacophonous, at first unrecognizable, but then all but unmistakable as the angry mutterings of a vengeful mob. "Are they going to kill you?" the old man hissed eagerly. "Yes," Joel answered, "because they were." "They've marched me forward now," he narrated, the monotony in his tone never betraying the terror he now felt for the second time, as an unseen man with thick calloused hands roughly jerked a length of rope twisted into a fitting knot around his neck. "The noose is on me now," he explained. "The hangman is saying something, but I can't make out his words. The ground falls out from underneath my feet. I'm falling, and I just felt my neck break. And now I'm swinging. Back and forth, back and forth. I can feel myself swinging. I don't understand why. I'm dead, but I can still feel myself swinging. It should be over now. I'm dead. The dream should end when I die, but it doesn't. It doesn't." And then the swinging stops, and the falling begins. I'm cut down from the gallows, and I land on my knees with my face planted smack against the ground. I think I broke my nose, but that I barely even notice. I don't care about the pain. All I know now is the fear that comes from the realization of what happens to me next. They are going to drag me to whatever pit they use as a cemetery for the damned and the hated, and they are going to bury me, and I am going to have to lie there in the hole and let them. And I try to tell them not to. I try to shout, "Don't bury me! Don't bury me!" With that, The volume of Joel's own voice woke him up, not with a start, but with a shudder. He blinked once or twice, uncertain in the darkness whether or not he had opened his eyes at all. At first his own breathing, raspy and ragged against his tender throat, was the only sound he could hear. Was the old man even still there? Joel couldn't tell, nor could he tell whether his presence or absence would be more unsettling. He only sat up, and even then only slightly, when a second sound invaded the silence, a slightly circular scraping that desisted seconds later, followed by the unmistakable, all but musical jingle of a manhandled keychain. "Hello?" he asked, still unsure of the response that he hoped for. "That's it. That's the whole dream." The lights came on again. Long after Joel left, the old man waited patiently, just in case he returned. After an hour or so had passed without interruption, the old man allowed himself one of his rarest smiles, this one utterly sincere. He had recognized Joel, or, more specifically, he had recognized his nightmare. Just thinking about it brought that smile back to his old bloodless lips. Eagerly he stood, driven equally by nostalgia and hunger, and once again withdrew his keyring to unlock the shelf where he kept all his mason jars of carefully catalogued bad dreams. As he opened the door, a bright blue glow illuminated his face, the shine of each nightmare burning a little different from each other. Every jar held a different label, scribbled in black magic marker on a scrap of masking tape. Most of them had only a name, but some of them had a date as well, and in some cases even an abbreviated synopsis. Shark Attack, for example, or Naked in School. Most of these the old man simply ignored. He knew which jar he wanted, the only one without a label. The one he'd just put there earlier tonight. He took it out, closing and locking the cabinet back up, then held his prize at eye level as tightly as he could in his worn, arthritic hands. Within, Joel's nightmare twisted and thrashed like an angry eel, making its blue glow dance across his face. And, not for the first time, he lamented his lost youth. Gone were the days he would simply follow troubled children home from school from a safe distance, lurking just out of sight until night fell. Back then he always knew which drain pipe to climb, which upstairs window to pry open and slink inside, clever as a snake. From there, all he had to do was tiptoe through the room and find the darkest corner, or crawl under the bed and wait, patiently, for the nightmares to begin, so he could feed. They tasted differently back then, he reflected, not for the first time. Better. Part of that, of course, was due to that flattering fog of nostalgia that forever shrouds happy memories to which one can never return. But it was more than just that. Everything was different now. He was different now. He'd always preferred the dreams of children, but now, forced by circumstance and his own decrepitude to draw the desperate and the destitute through online advertisements, hypnosis, even paying for their dreams like a drunken student ordering out for pizza. At least tonight had been different. Special. Earlier, at the coffee shop, Neither Joel's name nor his face had meant anything to the old man until the youth had opened his mouth and begun to ramble about his life and his history and his childhood, and then told, almost as a non sequitur, a little story about a raft made of logs and a river filled with impossibly large leeches. The old man tried to conceal his excitement because he remembered that dream. He remembered it because he'd been there almost 20 years ago, and he had eaten that dream. It wasn't that he remembered everything he'd ever eaten, of course. Far from it. But this one, this particular little nocturnal misadventure, had held a singular flavor he could never forget. Maybe that came from the heightened fear that the young Joel had felt as his raft fell apart beneath his feet. Or maybe its vividness had enhanced the taste. The old man didn't know, had never known, and he did not speculate. But the fact remained that the progenitor of the best meal he'd ever eaten, all those years ago, had walked into the coffee shop this very night. Very few men his age, he reflected, were afforded an opportunity such as this. The dream he now held, lighting up his weathered face in grim half-smile, offered so much more than simple sustenance. This wasn't just a meal. This was a time machine of sorts, a chance to return, if only briefly, to the very best days of his life. He gave the jar a bittersweet smile as he changed his mind, unlocked the cabinet again, and put it away. This one he would save for later.